topic, a very important topic, director, a very important topic. You will find more than one question from the director. I am very much sure. Director include the independent director for our chapter. So I am not going to discuss the independent director separately. Instead of, I am going to discuss the independent director within this chapter only. Let us decide whether the definition of a director is available. Yes, definition of a director is available. Section 2, clause 34 of the Companies Act 2013 define the word director. And the definition of a director is a very clear and very short. You will be very happy. Section 234 says that director means that any person appointed to the board as a director. Now the definition is tricky in that sense that any person cannot be said as a director of a company. Only those persons who are appointed as a director on the board or to the board is known as a director, right? Appointed to the board as a director will be known as a director. So definition is not covering each and every person. Say for example, Mr. A is appointed as a director, right? At this point of a time, we are not concerned what kind of a director he is. Whether he is a full-time director, part-time director, managing director, we are not concerned with this kind of a classification. Mr. A is appointed as a director on the board. He will be qualifying within the meaning of the definition, and therefore he will be known as a director. But say for example, Mr. A not appointed as a director but functioning or acting as a director or like a director, he will not be regarded as a director because the definition clearly says that appointed to. He has not been appointed, he is just functioning as a or like a director. So the definition is very much clear. It says that only the person appointed to the board of director or board is regarded as a director of a company. Now you may have a question, why the director? What is the need of a director in the company, right? We know that the company is an artificial person, and being an artificial person, the company cannot make a decision. Company cannot decide on each and every matter. To run a business of the company, there is a requirement of people who can decide on behalf of the company on a daily basis, right? And therefore, the directors are appointed by the shareholder so that those directors can decide for the company and act in the interest of a company as well as in the interest of the shareholder. There is a requirement of a director because the company is the body for the purpose of making a profit. So for the purpose of making a profit, you require someone who monitor, who control, who prepare the policy, who execute the policy, who take a decision, who also take the responsibility, right? And therefore, there is a requirement of a director. And that's why we know that company is a separate legal entity. Remember, the directors are not the owner of the company, even though they are holding the majority of the shares. Shareholders are also not the owner, and company is regarded as a separate legal entity. Now let us move to the next point. As I said to you that only the person who is appointed to the board of director can be regarded as a director You will ask me, sir, it means a company as a person can be appointed as a director. So we need to understand who is a person here, right? Who can be appointed as a director of a company? Remember, only a natural individual can be appointed as a director of a company. Question is that, sir, why only the individual, the natural person can be appointed as a director? Very simple. If there is any mistake, if there is any fault, if there is any default, there should be readily someone available to whom the court can make a responsible. If the individual person is there, it will be easy for a court to find him, to make the responsible for any default. If company is allowed to be a director, company is controlled by the other directors, and therefore for a court it will be difficult to find out who are really behind this mistake, behind this default. So only the individual can be the director of a company. It means the company, partnership firm, or LLP, or you can say the artificial person, cannot be appointed as a director of a company. So in a short, would like to say again that only the individual person can be appointed as a director. Firm, body corporate, LLP, company, society, trade union, this cannot be appointed as a director of a company. Right? Now, you will say me, sir, what about the classification? Just before a moment, you said part-time director, full-time director, managing director, etc. Remember, my dear friends, in fact, the Companies Act 2013 or earlier Companies Act 1956 not providing anything about the classification of directors. But it is a people like us, right, who created the classification, right? And therefore, we need to understand the types of a director. In fact, the Companies Act does not provide any sections which says the types of a director. But for our conveniency, for our better understanding, we created this classification. And according to this classification, let us understand first executive and non-executive director. In a short form, sometimes it is known as an ED, executive director, and NED, non-executive director. A classification is based upon the simple matter. If the director is holding any executive post, or if the director is in employment of a company, full-time employment of a company, he will be known as an executive director. Let me give the example so that it will be much clearer on your part. A managing director of a company or the full-time director of a company are the good example of an executive director who are holding the post of an executive apart from being a director. See, the director and managing director. So managing director is an executive post which is held by the director. So that director will be known as an executive director. So we are saying managing director is an executive director. A simple director who is not having any connection with the company, right? We can say ordinary director is known as a non-executive director, right? So executive and non-executive directors are understood based upon whether the person is holding any executive post or not. Let us move to the second category, that is the independent director. See, we can classify the director from the point of view of the dependency. And here the director can be classified as an independent director and a dependent director. Right? Independent director means the person or a director who does not have any relation. Relation can be either in terms of a relative or in terms of money. That means a pecuniary relationship, either with the company is subsidiary company or associate company, with the promoter or with the director of a company. That means that any person who is appointed as a director on the company, he is not related with the company, not related with the promoter, not related with the management of the company, is known as an independent director. More about the independent director we will learn little later on, right? Because there is so much details to be discussed under the independent director. In the years to come, in the times to come, the independent director will be the crucial factor in the corporate as well as in the examination. The third category is resident director, right? Earlier, most of the company used to appoint the foreign director or a foreigner as a director. Remember, the Companies Act do not prohibit to appoint any director who is belonging to the foreign or who is having a different citizenship. But certain company and every company is required to have a certain number of a resident director, right? Resident director means the director who has or who had stay in India for a 182 days in the preceding financial year. So if you want to calculate the status of the independent director, resident director for 2015-16, in the year 2014 and 15, he should have stayed in India for a period more than 182 days. The very same way you are calculating, you are considering under the Income Tax Act, right? The next category is a woman director. Remember the section 149, read along with rule number 3 of the appointment of directors and the qualification of a director rules 2014 suggests that certain category of a company should have at least one. It means if you appoint a more than one, there is no problem, right? Certain category of a company should have at least one in woman director. Now, which company is required to appoint the woman director? Remember, not every company, only the listed company. All the listed company should have at least one woman director on the board of the company. Number 2, if it is not a listed, but if it is a public company having a paid up capital of 100 crore or more, or turnover of rupees 300 crore or more, if any one of the threshold or a limit is attracted, company is required to appoint the woman director. Now you will ask me, sir, this limit 100 crore or 300 crore is to be calculated at which point of a time? It has to be as per the last audited balance sheet. Right? Say for example, in a September 15, you would like to decide whether the company is supposed to appoint a woman director. So for September 15, you are required to consider the audited balance sheet as on 31st March 2014, right? Sorry, 15. The last audited balance sheet from the point of view of the September time is 31st March 2015. So as on 31st March 2015, if the company is having any one criteria attracted, company is required to appoint at least one woman director, right? Now, there are all the chances that the company has appointed the woman director because a company is required to appoint. There is a vacancy created in the post of the woman director. Then it has to be filled in the next board meeting or within a period of 3 months, right? So company is required to fill in the vacancy created in the place of a woman director within a maximum period of 3 months, right? Moving to the next point. that is the legal position of the directors. Whether the Companies Act define the legal position of a directors? Answer in a straight manner is a no. The Companies Act 2013 do not clearly provide any legal position of a director. This has been attracted, collected and gathered from different sections and different provisions. Let's understand. Now, in a number of cases, the directors of a company are regarded as an agent of the company. Remember, my dear friends, the directors of the company are agent of the company, but they are not the agent of an individual shareholder. What a company can do, that means what is the authority of the company, the same authority is available to the directors of a company, unless the shareholder or any other authority has put the restriction on it. So, what kind of a business can be carried out by the company? Same business can be carried out by the director in the name of a company. So, all the rules of an agency will be equally applicable. All the rules of an agency are equally applicable, right? And the rule of agency, you know that agent is liable if he acts beyond his authority. The another important rule of an agency is that what a principal can do, the agent can do, and in that case, for the act of an agent, the principal is liable. It means if the director has acted within his authority, then company is liable for the act of a director. Number two, in a certain situation, the directors are regarded as a trustee. If the directors are regarded as a trustee, the company is regarded as a trust. Now, the role of a trustee is reflected in the provision of allotment of shares, in distribution of a dividend, protecting the asset of the company and prospectus. In this case, the directors are required to work in the benefit of the company, required to disclose everything in a true and fair manner, right, and act in the interest of the shareholder. Like the trustee is acting in the interest of the beneficiary. The third, the director's employee. Remember, my dear friend, every director of a company are usually not regarded as an employee of a company. The directors are regarded as an employee only if the separate contract of employment is entered into. It means if the separate contract of employment is not entered into with the director, that director will not be the employee of a company. Officers of the company. Yes, every director will be regarded as an officer of the company as per section 2 clause 59 of the Companies Act 2013. Whether he has entered into the contract of employment or not, he will be regarded as an officers for the purpose of performing his duty. Right? The next legal position of a director is that he is regarded as an officer in a default. Section 2, clause 60 define this in detail. It says that the full-time director and KMP, key managerial personnel. Right? About the KMP we will learn in detail in a next chapter. Right? Any full-time director, key managerial personnel regarded as the officer in a default, right? And if the company has not appointed the full-time director or key managerial personnel, then the directors, all the directors, let me clearly mention it, all the directors in their absence will be regarded as an officer in a default for not complying with the particular provision of the Act. However, there is a possibility that if the board of directors, say for example, board has appointed Mr. A as a responsible person for the purpose of doing a certain act. As the one director has been made responsible for a non-compliance of that particular provision, only the Mr. A will be an officer in a default. In that case, all other directors will not be regarded as an officer in default. Say for example, Mr. A has been made liable to maintain the books of account as per the provision of the Act. Books of account are not maintained. Only a Mr. A will be regarded as an officer in a default. Right? You may note down the point.